In today's video, we're going to discuss all the latest NHL trade rumors, including all the latest on Erik Karlsson, Max Pacioretty, Torey Krug, Jeff Skinner, and others. And that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We'll review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, today we're discussing all the latest NHL trade rumors. Now that we're pretty much through NHL free agency, obviously there's still some players out there that need to be signed, but the actual activity on the free agent front is calmed down considerably. There likely will be the odd player kind of trickling in here occasionally, and there's a bunch of RFAs now that are looking for new contracts with their existing clubs. Today is the deadline at 5 p.m. Eastern time for RFAs who receive qualifying offers to file for salary arbitration. If you're a fan of one of those teams or players, you have no need to worry. It's a very common process. It just allows the team and the player to continue negotiating while they're waiting for the arbitration hearing. And if they really come to that much of a difficult time coming to terms on a new deal, then the arbitrator will settle it. Now that we're through the NHL part of free agency that's really busy and active, we're heading into the NHL trade period now, where we tend to see more deals happen. We've already had a few deals. We really thought things would have been more active at the NHL draft, and I think there was a lot more talk that was going on, but there wasn't really resulting in a whole lot of deals. Obviously, we've seen a few deals happen. There was the Carolina-Calgary deal that we've seen. We've seen the Ryan O'Reilly trade finally go down, but obviously there's some others here that have been rumored to be traded for quite some time, and they haven't been consummated here as of yet. So here's all the latest on what we have so far. So let's start with the Montreal Canadiens and Max Pacioretty. Now, obviously, he's been rumored to be traded now for quite some time. Nothing has happened as of yet. We heard at the draft that he was really close to being shipped out to the LA Kings or the San Jose Sharks. I think there was deal discussions on both sides there, and they were close on both occasions. Obviously, it looks as though the contract extension that was being discussed once he arrived with the new team is kind of where he kind of stopped the deal from going through. Now, I'm not really sure what the return offer was for Montreal. It looks as though right now the trade chatter on Pacioretty has kind of calmed down, and it looks as though there might actually be a possibility that they re-sign him here. Now, personally, I still think it's likely he gets traded, but if he does, I would think that the most likely landing spot, I just have a feeling with the Florida Panthers. Now, if you look at the Panthers organization, they don't have a ton of cap space right now. They brought in Mike Hoffman from Ottawa not too long ago, so they don't have a ton of space there, but they do have a lot of depth at center, so they could offer a center to the Habs in return. Now, I know we don't often see deals within divisions like that, but if it really makes that much sense for both clubs, then perhaps it's something they consider. It has been highly speculated for some time that the Panthers would love to get in on Max Pacioretty. Now, of all the center icemen they have, I would think Nick Bjugstad would likely be the one that would be offered up. But if you take a look at who else they have in their lineup here, between Trocheck and Barkov, and then you've still got McCann, you've got Borgstrom coming up. Now, he could potentially be a winger as well, but they probably would like to try him at center. So obviously they have enough. The Panthers have enough depth there at the center ice position that they could take a chance in moving one of their younger centers for a more experienced scoring winger like a Pacioretty. You throw him into the mix with the guys they've already acquired here, and that could provide a ton of scoring. So not a guarantee that's going to happen, but I think the Panthers make the most sense from a lot of aspects here. But the teams in the West, I would still keep your eyes on the Sharks when it comes to Pacioretty as well. Obviously, they were in heavy on Tavares, didn't land him. Now, I know Pacioretty is a different kind of player, but they are certainly looking to add a boost to their organization here, and he very well could provide that scoring punch they're looking for. So I wouldn't completely rule out the Sharks, even though the deal fell through before. I think LA would be out now that they've signed Kovalchuk, so I think that's out of the question. But the Sharks are still involved, and then we have the Panthers, kind of like a stealth team there that I think could swoop in with the right offer and maybe see that deal happen. But I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility here that Max Pacioretty stays in Montreal and actually signs an extension. That's been the more talk I've heard more as of late. But we'll see what happens here. There's lots of time to get this figured out. And obviously the Montreal Canadiens have other things to consider here now that they've also found out the news today that Shea Weber is going to be out of action for up to 6 months, having another surgery. So obviously Weber is health issues continue to prolong things here. He's going to be out for quite a substantial period of time. I would think that around Christmas time would likely be the earliest he comes back. More than likely be sometime into January, and that's assuming that everything goes well and there is no setbacks during the recovery process. It could potentially end up being longer. You just never know. So obviously that contract of his, which runs, I believe it's 8 more seasons, is a big cap hit. Thankfully in real dollars, it's not as bad as a lot of the actual salary payout was front loaded, but still, there's a big cap hit for a long period of time. Considering where Montreal is expected to be this year, I'm not sure that we see a big reaction and a trade go down to kind of shore things up back there. I think that the Habs are probably already looking to improve that back end if they possibly can. Obviously, some of the contracts, like the Karl Alsner one, for example, I'm sure they're not real fond of anymore, but they may very well be looking to go into another year with him to see if he can bounce back and provide some stronger play before they really try to cut bait on that contract, which is going to be proved tough to do anyhow. Now, jumping over to the Boston Bruins here for a moment, it's been speculated for some time that Torey Krug might be a trade chip they try to use to upgrade other areas of their team. Now, for one point in time, it was rumored that they really wanted a different type of left side defender. I was a little bit more defensively responsible. Now, they may have answered that question by signing free agent John Moore. I mean, they gave the guy a 5-year contract. So obviously they've accomplished what they kind of set out when the offseason began, that they really want to improve that left side D. So obviously if they do trade Torey Krug, it kind of probably makes more sense that they'd go after a scoring winger. They've been rumored to be going after some more firepower up front. Obviously they're another team, again, that was trying to get in on the John Tavares sweepstakes but fell short. So obviously, they have depth at center ice. But obviously Tavares would have been an upgrade. They would have had to have talked to players like a David Krejci or maybe even a David Backes about waiving their no-trade clause or depending on what they can work with those contracts to see if they could move one of those guys off the roster, because obviously that's probably what would have had to have been done to facilitate a John Tavares signing. So obviously that could still be something that we see. I've seen Krejci's name mentioned in trade rumors, but obviously he holds a lot of the control due to his contract. So I would be a little bit surprised if he's moved. I think it's more likely though that we could see a Torey Krug get moved for adding a scoring winger. Now obviously I don't think they'd be in on a guy like Pacioretty. That deal I don't think would make sense. If you look around the league and look at teams that could certainly use a player like a Torey Krug, then obviously one team that comes to mind is the Islanders, another one is Vegas. Now obviously the other big guy here that we're going to talk about here briefly is Karlsson. So I think once that situation is sorted out and we know what's going on with him, will kind of dictate a lot of what happens with guys like Torey Krug, because obviously a lot of these teams are going to try to go after the big fish first, and then they'll go down the line to their plans B, C, D if that doesn't work out. Now the latest, we'll jump over here to Karlsson for a momentarily here. The latest on that situation is that the Tampa Bay Lightning now might have emerged as the front runner with a possible 3-way deal is what we're hearing between the Lightning in Ottawa and the Rangers, with possibly some members of Tampa going to the Rangers as a bit of a salary dump to help them open up the space to bring him in. It was speculated that it could have been Sergachev, some draft picks, possibly a roster player like a Tyler Johnson or something, maybe going back. That's the actual moving parts are a little bit up in the air right now, but that's the latest. I mean, yesterday we reported it looked as though Dallas was the front runner. Now it looks like Tampa is the front runner. It's changing by the hour here, by the day. So it's really hard to say until something actually goes down. It's really hard to say what happens, but obviously that's the latest in that situation right now. I wouldn't count Vegas out of the mix here completely either. They're still involved in discussions. So between, you got Vegas, you've got Tampa, you've got Dallas. So I mean, Dallas might be out of the equation now because it looks as though they were insisting on Heiskanen being involved in that deal, and now the Stars seem to be pretty reluctant to do that, just like Vegas didn't want to give up Cody Glass. So obviously these teams are trying to take advantage of the situation. They don't want to include their top prospects, which is making things difficult to get done for both sides here. So we'll see how that develops, but as of right now, as of the recording of this video here, late Thursday morning into the afternoon on the East Coast, it looks as though that Tampa is now the front runner. So we'll see what happens, and if something finally gets done, obviously we can discuss further, but that is the latest on the Karlsson situation. Now, back to Boston. Obviously, once that happens, like I said, that's going to open up the floodgates here to possibly look at some other deals. Teams that are trying to get in on him might end up going to Torey Krug as a backup plan. I know one's a right shot, one's a left. They're a little bit different kind of player, but they're both really solid offensively. So, for example, the New York Islanders are a team that I'd look to as well. They don't seem to be trying to get involved in the other situation with Ottawa here. So, obviously, the Islanders, like I said, they just lost John Tavares. They need to get some things going. They have a lot of cap space. They do have some lot of young prospects to work with here, so I could see maybe Torey Krug being an attractive option for them. Then you've got Vegas as well. If Vegas misses out on trying to land the big stud defenseman. They may fall back and say, Torey Krug's not a bad secondary option as well. They have some forwards that might be attractive to the Bruins as well, and maybe we'll swing a deal there. So it makes sense to me that if the Bruins do end up moving Torey Krug, that they likely end up doing it more for a forward now that they've signed John Moore here, kind of short up that left side defense. So we'll see what happens. But if Krug is on the move, then I would personally look to teams that don't get in on the Karlsson situation. So you're looking at teams like the Islanders, maybe Vegas, maybe Dallas, so we'll see what happens here. But obviously at the same time, it looks as though if he's going to be moved, it's going to be for a scoring forward. Now the Hurricanes, back to Carolina here, they've had Jeff Skinner and Justin Faulk on the market for quite some time and haven't been able to land a deal. So obviously with the Carolina Hurricanes bringing in Calvin DeHaan, I think that really puts the fact that they likely will move somebody out, and it looks as though Justin Faulk would be the preferred guy to be traded out here. So obviously he's another right shot offensive defenseman on the market, and I think we could see a lot of the same teams kind of getting involved here that we've already discussed. Now, like I said, obviously once the big one is settled here, once we know what's going on with Erik Karlsson, then we'll have a better idea on where these other guys are going to go as well, because like I said, whoever doesn't end up landing him, and there's going to be a bunch of them, that they're going to be looking at other guys like Krug and like Faulk, etc., to kind of facilitate a lot of these other moves. Now, sticking with the Carolina Hurricanes here for a moment, let's also jump into forward Jeff Skinner. Obviously, Skinner's been mentioned in trade rumors now for quite some time. When the season ended, it looks as though it was inevitable that Skinner and Faulk are both going to be moved by the Hurricanes, and they look to be shopping him pretty hard. Now with Skinner, he's got a pretty decent cap hit, and he's going into the final year of his contract. One team that's always been linked to Skinner appears to be the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, obviously, they may have a difficult time making that work with the salary cap. They'd have to have a decent amount of money going out as well. So the speculation was that maybe they would offer Carl Hagelin, obviously, who is making, I believe it's $4-point-something million per year. So obviously that's close enough to the Skinner contract, but obviously they'd have to sweeten the deal a little bit besides Hagelin, maybe throw in a draft pick, as well as perhaps maybe young goaltender Tristan Jarry. Now, as we know, the Hurricanes really need a goaltender. They have Scott Darling, they have signed Peter Mrazek. Neither one of those I don't think is a long-term option. If they were able to get a goalie like Jarry in a trade, then perhaps they would be able to take one of those veterans and move them out. Or if they had to, Mrazek was only signed short-term here, they could run with Jarry and Darling for a little while as well. So that would give them an upgrade in goal. It would give the Penguins another winger. I mean, can you imagine Jeff Skinner on Crosby's wing? I think that would work rather well. So that's just a trade theory that I've seen floated around by a few sources here online. I'm not sure how close any of that's ever come, but that's the one team that I have continuously heard linked to Skinner. There apparently are many other teams interested in Skinner as well, but the only one I've really seen anything significant on that come close at all would be the Penguins. Now, like I said, that would be challenging for them to do, but it is a possibility, so we'll see. There really hasn't been much new mention on Skinner here in a while, but I know based on what I've heard from Jim Rutherford in previous comments, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to make another trade similar of this type of magnitude to kind of shake things up a little bit in Pittsburgh to try to get back to that Stanley Cup next year. Well, that's all the latest we have for today for all the NHL trade rumors. It should be an active period here coming up soon. It could be any time now. By the time this gets posted, there could even be a deal done, or if not, it could be later today, into tomorrow, or into next week. I fully suspect we're going to start to see some more significant trades go down. I don't know if we're going to have a whole bunch of them throughout the whole summer, but I would think that there's likely going to be at least a couple more fairly significant trades here made in the coming days or weeks, depending on how quickly these teams can work out some deals. So if you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there is plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.